You're listening to Creatives Crushing Anxiety, the podcast for online business creatives looking to minimize their anxiety and maximize their productivity through systems organization and time management. I'm your host, Dia Darling. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Creatives Crushing Anxiety. Now today we are talking about the signs that you need a vacation. Now this is actually from a classic blog post, but I wanted to bring it to the podcast and also add some new information around it because I have been fortunate enough to have a lot of calls with different people in my community lately. And it seems that burnout is a theme right now. And I know that there's a lot going on in the world between COVID-19 and the Black Lives Matter movement. So we're burnt out, we're stuck at home, we're seeing these things that just emotionally and physically drain us. We're trying to learn new things, we're trying to contribute to this important cause. And we probably are at this point right now where we are still kind of social distancing, not as much as we probably should be, but that's a different conversation. And so we are in the work environment more. So even if you already worked from home beforehand, you're probably noticing that you're on your computer a lot more because you don't have those outside things that you are used to having. You don't have that dance class to go to because the gym shut down. You don't have happy hour with your girls because you don't want to go to drink at a bar right now with a face mask on. So the burnout is really, really starting to hit. And I know personally for me, when everything happened with the shutdown, that a lot of my client projects shifted. And so it was like, we have a plan, we have things in place, things are ready to go. But then, oh, wait, we can't do this in-person event. Oh, wait, we need to push back this launch to a time where people aren't as concerned about money. We have to just completely shift. So it's been a really reactive period for me. And that wears me out. I prefer to be proactive over reactive. I like to have a plan. I like to look at things like long term and really just kind of work like that. But of course, life happens. As we all know, 2020 has been all about life happening. And so we've had to be reactive. And that is incredibly draining in general, but it's even more draining when you may have anxiety or depression or you just don't vibe to that well. I am a creature of habit. So when I have to like completely do a 360 or a 180 or whatever, I don't know. I'm not good at math. Um, it it takes a lot out of me more than normally it would to just do a project or whatever. So I wanted to talk about some of the signs that you need a vacation. And I also kind of will go into some different ways that you can take a vacation, even if you really can't right now. So let's do this.
So, the first sign is that you feel like you're too busy to take a break. Now, this seems like a little bit tricky because you're like, what? But if it stresses you out, the idea of actually stepping away from work for a day or more, then there's a sign that like literally something is wrong and something is broken and something needs to be fixed. Either people are putting too much on you, also you're accepting too much, or you're stressing yourself out over things that aren't necessarily all that important. Now, there are important tasks and urgent tasks in our business. And of course, there's always going to be more to do. But when you feel like there's no way that you can take a day off, that's probably a sign that you really need one. Now, I've talked about before the different benefits of stepping away from the work that you're doing and allowing yourself to just really check in with yourself and how you can come back with a fresh new perspective, new ideas, new ways of doing things, and solutions to problems. But if you're feeling like there's no way in the world that I can take a break and it's a source of anxiety for you, then that is the first sign that you definitely need a break. Now, the thing is, like I said, there's always going to be more to do. But if you come up with a strategic plan and you say, okay, this is how I'm going to handle this day off. Because think about it, if you were really sick, like really sick, you got hit by a bus, heaven forbid, or you just had the flu and you literally were just delirious and could not work. things would still happen. Your clients would still work and they would understand. So even if it's just the process of this week you say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take next Friday off. So I know that means on next Monday through Thursday, I need to get X, Y, and Z done so that I can be um, able to just really enjoy that time off. And yes, there's going to be new things when I come back, but I'm taking this time and I'm taking care of myself. So if you feel like you can't take a break, chances are you really need to. Now, the second sign is that you feel tired all the time. Even if you get a full night's sleep, even if you sleep in on the weekends, like you just feel like you can't shake that exhausted feeling. Mental fatigue is real. And I remember back in college, we would have these weeks where they would be study weeks before finals, and me and my friends would be in the library for hours. And at some point, I feel like we would all have a mental break, and we'd either end up wandering around campus or going to Walmart or McDonald's or something. And once we took that break, we were able to like come back, get back to work, and be okay. And sometimes we'd even go to parties. But the thing is, like, just taking that break and stepping away. And the thing is, when you reach a certain level of burnout and you've been go, go, go for so long, sleeping in on a weekend may not be enough of a break for you. Because find especially when things are really busy, Saturday, I'm thinking, okay, I really want to relax today, but then something's popping in my head. And then Sunday, I'm thinking, oh, back to the grind tomorrow. So that's why it's really important to actually like schedule some real vacation time, even if it's just like 3 days. But ideally, it would be more than that. It's hard for you to get away. Maybe take off a Friday and a Monday, and then just have that Friday through Monday, so you have 4 days of a break. But when you feel like you're tired, no matter how much you sleep, that is a really good sign that you are burnt out and that it is time for a real break from your work, your life, your business. The third sign is that you are extra irritable. Now, I am totally calling myself out on this one because when I feel overworked, when I'm burnt out, I am so irritated by any and everything. And you catch yourself sometimes and you'll be like, why am I so irritated? Why is this so annoying when it's not normally annoying? Things like the way someone chews, or if you're working in an office and you're like, why do they type so loud? Like clack, 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 clack. You notice that you are being super, super just hypersensitive to the things going on around you. And that's because you're irritable, because you're tired. It's the same as when you have have you ever been around a baby that skipped its nap or it's fighting sleep for whatever reason, even though it's dog tired and it's just cranky, nothing you do seems to make it happy or soothe it. We are basically just big babies sometimes, and not like not like you're a crybaby, but like that's babies are human, we're human. So whenever we're burnt out, whenever we're tired, we're going to be a lot more irritable because we just don't have the capacity to put up with things that we normally put up with. And sometimes it's not even that we're putting up with something, it's that it's normal, but it's a slight annoyance. It's going to get so much worse. It's going to be magnified. So if you catch yourself just being really, really irritated by people, I know for me, it's always a really good sign to me when I get irritated when I hear a Slack notification. I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to take a lunch break. Maybe it's time to, wrap up for the day and close Slack. But it's it'll be like a little twitch pretty much where you're like, what now? I know at one point I was working with a client who loved to message me multiple times on different devices. Don't do that anymore. And my phone would go off and I would just be like, oh, what now? And that was like, oh, why am I getting so irritated? Especially when I would go look at the phone and it would not be a work thing at all. It would be like a friend sending me a meme. And I'm like, okay, woosah. But that's also another thing. When you're irritated, things that would normally make you happy can be irritating. So a friend texting you, telling you a funny story that happened to her where you would normally like communicate with her, you're just thinking, oh my gosh, doesn't she know how busy I am? Why is she telling me this right now? And it's not your fault, your friend's fault. It's just that you're irritated and you're tired. And What's even more dangerous about this is that you do start to do damage to your relationships, be it personal or professional, because no one wants to be around the person who's irritated all the time. And the final sign is that you used to love what you do and now you dread it or even hate it. Now, obviously, when you feel like you are dreading the work that you're doing, it could also mean that it's time for a change. But a lot of times that's not the case because you could have a job drinking champagne on a yacht every day. And if you don't get a break from that sometime, well, first of all, you're going to be hungover. But second of all, you're going to get burnt out. You're going to be like, oh, I really don't feel like drinking champagne today. Can't we just have like beer? I'm so over it. Like, no matter what you are doing, if you're doing it too much and you're never giving yourself a break, no matter how much you love it, you will start to dread it. So if you feel like, oh, like you used to love to talk about what you do, and you may be in social situations and people are like, what's going on? And you're like, oh, I'm working on this and da da da. But now you find yourself, if they're saying, oh, how's business? How's work? You're just like, oh, can we talk about something else? That is a clear sign that you need a break from it. You need to go away and come back and remember why you loved it. And I do recommend doing that, especially if you're thinking, okay, maybe it means I need to change something. Maybe I need to burn my business to the ground. I recommend actually just trying to give yourself a little bit of a sabbatical, be it a few days, be it a few weeks, depending on your what you can do, and then come back and see if you still feel that way. Because I know that our moods kind of ebb and flow. And I know personally, the past few months, I had been feeling really, really burnt out. And I kept saying, if I make it to vacation, I'll be okay. If I make it to vacation, I'll be okay. And I had vacation. It was wonderful. Spent time with the family. Got back, I felt the exact same way. And then, so I had to go a little bit deeper. And this was something that I actually had to talk to my therapist about because it wasn't that I was hating my business or I was hating my clients. It's that that vacation wasn't enough. Because what I did was I came back into some of the same habits that were burning me out. I actually, allowed myself to remember, okay, hey, you put that lunch break on your calendar. Take a break, even if you're not hungry. Heck, take a nap, meditate, whatever. So I started being really, really conscious again because it's a muscle that we have to grow and we have to constantly check in with ourselves to stop working at a certain time, to take breaks throughout the day, to check in with how I'm feeling and what it is that I'm liking and what it is that I'm not liking, and identifying if it's one piece of something that I'm finding so draining, or if it's the whole thing. If it's just like a piece, or is it the whole thing? And if it's the whole thing on a project that's draining me, then I know I don't need to work on that project. If it's a certain part, then I can have my VA do it. I can ask for help. I can try to find an easier way to do it. But if you're feeling like you just don't want to do something that you once loved to do, you don't have to necessarily believe, okay, maybe I've grown out of this. Maybe you just need a break. I really hope that you found this list really helpful, and maybe it made you check in with yourself that you're like, oh, I have been feeling these things. Oh, I haven't had a break or a vacation in a while. And even if you can't go somewhere, if it's not in your budget, or if you're being, cautious with what's going on in the world, or if we're past COVID and you're listening to this, I'm going to share in the show notes some ideas for going on a vacation on the cheap. And if you are interested in the at-home spa day that I recently did and how I set that up, just to really recharge and renew, let me know and I will make an episode about it. I will catch you next time.
This has been Creative Crushing Anxiety. For more podcast episodes, visit diadarling.com. Did you enjoy this episode? Then go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Catch you next time.